into harvesting hope, learning to live your best life possible, and remembering that no matter how hard it gets, you should never lose hope. I am so excited today. I have a special treat for you. My now dear friend Stephanie is on, and she is going to be sharing some amazing nuggets of wisdom. Stephanie and I met when she interviewed me for a project, which is now an amazing book, Yoga Wisdom.
Oh,
And I'm just very honored. She's a fellow yoga teacher, and she has just done some pretty amazing things in her life despite some obstacles. So thank you for being on.
oh, Hope, I am so touched and honored, and thank you for that beautiful introduction. I am as big a fan of yours, so right back at you. I'm just thrilled to be here and honored. Thank you.
You're so welcome. Well, I want to know, and I know listeners want to know, who do you work with? Like, are you doing on a daily basis? Because I know you're a yoga teacher, but you're so much more than that. So who is your tribe? Who do you help? How do you work with people?
That is a great question. I found that I had a bigger opportunity to help people in my writing than I actually did teaching people poses. I found that there was so much of that going on that I was uh, compelled to really reach out to people in a different kind of way. So I'm a public speaker. I do private seminars. I teach workshops for corporations or individuals or small parties. However it is I can get the message out about so many common fears that we have and goals and life experiences that we're all in this together, and be inspiring for people that are struggling. So the theme of what we're going to talk about means so much to me.
Awesome. Well, and I gotta ask you, because I know viewers may not realize, the book that I was able to collaborate with you on is kind of all about that. It's journeys of, how many people did you interview?
Well, I actually saw the book initially. It's called Yoga Wisdom, Warrior Tales, Inspiring You On and Off Your Mat. It was inspired by a 4,000-mile yoga road trip that I took when I had decided, after being treated for all forms of trauma and abuse and PTSD, and I was lonely. I needed to rebuild my tribe and connect with healthy, vibrant people. And the one unifying thing that I could figure out was all the yoga teachers that I had met were the kindest, nicest, sweetest people on the planet. So I thought, well, I'll open this up to whatever it's going to be. So as I set out on this road trip in a rented RV before glamping was cool and before it was on Instagram, and I thought, I'm just going to interview a different yoga teacher every day. So I initially went 4,000 miles up the West Coast, but then I ended up going to 40 countries. And I interviewed hundreds and hundreds of teachers, but in the book, it was only 115. I say only 115 because I interviewed 400 people, which was so inspiring. And that's why I'm so grateful to be here, because the one thing that appeared out immediately was that we all struggle and that we all somehow face some challenge in our life. And the people in the book all just happen to use yoga as one of their tools to recalibrate or redesign or reinvigorate or simply move through an obstacle with peace and joy and grace, or with, a lot of tears or a lot of talking or whatever they needed. That was just happened to be our unifying thing. And then it got me to thinking that it's the universal human connectivity in the fact that we do all suffer and we do all meet obstacles. And even once you think things might be going super great again, another one's going to come along. Life keeps happening. So,
I love that.
Yeah. So although it is something that I thought was really awesome, it became so much bigger than just me finding a way to really put a conscious choice into action. When I had the opportunity to start my life over, it was a conscious choice to say, you know what, I'm going to do everything in my power, life rewards action, and I'm going to do everything in my power. I don't care how miserable, how hard, to radically redesign my life. And I did. Now, it doesn't mean my life is perfect. Far from it. I still have things that I deal with and things that I carry with me. But I've learned that you can exist in opposites. You can have joy and struggle, even in the same, you can hold both things at once. And that was new to me. I thought it was either, oh, I'm having a great day, and so that black and white thinking wasn't working for me anymore. And I realized, wow, I could be in joy even though I have things I still want and things that I still hope for. And in the moment, in the joy of the moment, which yoga gave me, I found that there was peace. There was no regrets from the past. There was no fear of the future. And that returning to your breath through yoga gave me that understanding. So it's possible. It's available to everybody.
I always say breathing is free. There's no prescription needed. And I think you had so many nuggets in there that you shared, the duality of being able to be happy and still have struggle. And I think people don't understand that the two can coexist, that you can still not be in the exact place you want in life and still be happy and content with that. And I feel like when I was going through recovery, that was kind of the thing. I know I'm not where I am. I know I may have just messed up 5 minutes ago, but I'm okay with that and content with that. And I can still be happy, even though I just totally biffed.
Right. And the cool thing about that is when you have a moment-to-moment awareness, you realize I could begin again right now. You know, I may someday make a good choice, another day make a better choice. Other times we're human, we fail. But now that whole idea that I used to read in books about, well, there is no failures, only lessons. I mean, it all sounds so great and inspiring, but at the time when you're going through those dark, hard days, I know when I went through my crash, there's days I don't even remember, whole days that I don't remember at all, because it is a physical process of either grief or transformation that sometimes we physically feel that pain. So the reason nobody wants to go there is because it's not just a mental construct.
Agreed.
It's a physical, you're having a rough day. I mean, it's gut-wrenching, awful. And I had gone like 10 years of my life without ever crying. And just even to think, okay, if I cry today, I'm going to get that headache. I'm going to feel awful, and I'm never going to come out of that was terrifying for me. Part of going through treatment, it showed me that I could go to those places and it was okay, because I learned how to really take care of myself. I wasn't relying on anybody else. And I found that even with all of my flaws and all of my ickiness and whatever, I liked myself. That was a huge thing for me, because I had been taught by my family of origin, by people around me, by my toxic environment and the culture, or whatever at the time, that I was not valuable. And then I was such a good student of those teachings that I made myself irrelevant in my own home. I had so checked out of my own life that I wasn't even aware that I wasn't aware. I know that sounds so insane, and it was at the time, but I couldn't even explain to you that I was unhappy. I was so out of touch with my own experience on the planet. And I find that so many people that check out through, I don't care if it's too much shopping, we all have tendencies. I don't care if it's too much shopping or sex or drugs or whatever it is.
I love the saying, we're all addicted to something.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I know a lot of people, even in treatment, that, tried to replace certain things with exercise or yoga or whatever. And then they might have tipped over even in that to extremes.
Oh, yeah.
So really, it is about balance. All of these parallels and metaphors that we learn in yoga, that's the number one question people ask all the time. How do I take what I've learned in yoga and take it, off my mat into my life? And I've found that being quiet, being still, listening, even learning how to listen to your own intuition. I was never taught that. And then it's trusting it. and acting on that. Whoa, those are 3 different pieces of, okay, I'm going to listen to myself. I'm going to get quiet.
And you don't need to do them all at once either.
Right. I love that. I mean, Hope, that makes so much sense to me now, where if you would have said that to me when I was struggling, I might not have even heard that. I mean, even the opportunity to be here with you today, I had to, say to myself beforehand, okay, you're enough. You're valuable enough. What you have to say, it might touch someone else on the planet. We all have that potential, even in our own communities or in our own house or within our own family. But the one thing that I've learned, though, is if you don't take care of yourself and put your needs, wants, desires first, then you're not able to then take care of everybody else or, do what you need to do within the day.
And it's not a selfish thing.
It's not. We have got to radically redesign and have an unbelievably radical shift in the world to know that it's okay to say, I'm going to take care of me so that I can then take better care of other people. Once I became whole and happy, then I had the ability to go, wow, this is how I want to spend the rest of my life. I want to, inspire people to try yoga. It's a pretty simple thing, but that sense of purpose and that sense of now knowing what I want to do, sure, it might change later, but right now it just feels so real and good and free. Like, I know once I went through my life change, one of the things that I dealt with, and I talk it in great length in my book, is I lost the connection with my 2 daughters. And through that grief process, one of the tools that I picked up was drinking too much. And I tipped over into blackouts. And so once I tried to pick up a new tool to deal with my grief, because yoga was great. I had met a wonderful man who is just incredible, and he's healthy and kind, but I decided I wasn't going to tell anybody that I was using this tool. Excuse me. So the day that I ended up saying, wow, this isn't working for me anymore, and walked into an AA room and said to a room full of strangers in tears, I need help. I mean, that was, just another part of the process. It wasn't that I saw that as a failure. I saw that as the ability to connect with other human beings who were in the solution.
That's support.
Yes, that community. And that's why I love what you're doing here, is you're showing people, no matter what obstacle, no matter what, or even if you just want to up level where you're already at, there is other people who've been where you're at. There's people who you can look to and talk to. I think I'm so bad about isolating myself as a writer. And more than that,
talked about this a little bit, like you kind of go into the hub.
Exactly. And even though I consider myself a sociable person, as either an introvert or an empath or a sensitive person, whatever label you want to call it, I find that I need a lot of time alone, and I get overstimulated in crowds or whatever. So that contributes to the isolation. Like, I think, I need time alone, when in truth, I don't. I just need somebody else who's willing to be real and authentic. So what I learned also is to discern for myself the people that I wanted and needed to be around, and have the courage to either eliminate or distance or moderate for me in a healthy way the toxic people that I did have to be around.
That's so powerful. That's so powerful. I think so many people, and sometimes when it's family, I had to disconnect with my father for 2 years before I could let him back into my life on my own terms with boundaries, because I was never taught boundaries. It was, you just explode into other people's lives, whether they like it or not. And what you're saying is so powerful, because I think a lot of people don't realize that they actually do have control over their life. It just doesn't feel like it because you were never taught those skills.
Right. But in addition to the fact that most people have never taught boundaries, this is multi-lessons. Like you were also taught not to express your anger. You might have also been taught, you have to talk to me. I am your parent. Or don't disappoint people. So I had like all those things. So even if it wasn't one thing that I would like, peel back and say, wow, I'm worried I'm going to disappoint someone. That was a huge shift for me, even in my writing, as I thought I might hurt someone if I say the truth.
Wow.
My truth.
You're speaking to me.
That was terrifying. The whole time I was writing my book, I was so worried that I was going to hurt someone. But all of a sudden I realized, well, wait a minute. My feelings and my experience is also perhaps a way that somebody else who's terrified could say, wow, okay, if she could do it, maybe I could even think about doing it. Because even when I made the decision to blurt out, it really wasn't a decision. When I made the blurt out that I wanted a divorce without thinking about it, in hindsight, it would have been smart to get a plan together and to maybe reach out to somebody and ask for help, but I didn't. So I think now if there's somebody now who's afraid or just even hiding or even wearing a mask. I mean, so many people wear a social mask and think, wow, if I don't do A, B, C, and D, then I'm either not going to be accepted in my community or in my church.
They don't think they're good enough. Like, this is the image that I have to be in order for people to think I'm successful. And there's so many different levels of success based on what you value.
Right. And some people don't even know what their values are. Like I had never even sat down and said to myself, because I was picking and choosing from the other people around me or what society was telling me was valuable, like your appearance. Like there was a certain aesthetic that you were supposed to aspire to. I had never defined those things for myself because I had taken all those things that other people had told me, either in the media, from magazines, or wherever. They were all outside of myself.
Can I ask you, what did you do? Like, what did you do to start to change that? Because I think for a lot of people, I literally, you're like speaking my language as far as like my life. I can agree with a lot of this. But I think a lot of people are also wondering, then they say the how. Like, how do I do this? So my question for you, what are some bite-sized nuggets that people listening today could say, I could totally do that. I could totally apply this to my life today after I listen to this interview.
Perfect. Let's do it right now. I can guarantee you, if you do what we're getting ready to do right now, every day, it takes a couple of minutes, it will radically change your life. So every morning when you get up, whether or not it's before your feet hit the ground and you're in quiet in that moment, or I actually get out of bed and I write it down. Now, a lot of people are very either intimidated by that, or they think it's going to take too much time, or they don't have a quiet space in their home. So that's why I offer the idea that you could do it in bed before you get up. But all I want you to do is write down or think about, just remember these acronyms: B-I-E-S-S. That's B-I-E-S-S. So the first one, you can remember in yoga, it's body, mind, and spirit, but I've changed it a little. So what the first one is body. So what you're going to do is you're going to get quiet for a second and just check in and say, how am I feeling today? Now that's the physical body.
And that takes 5 seconds.
5 seconds. And you know what? But you can't just say good or bad. You have to give it a word. So just say, I don't know, kind of cranky. It must be the weather. Here's the second part. What do you need from me today? So now I'm really talking to spirit. I'm talking to my wise intuition. I'm talking to my best self. And all of a sudden I go, well, of course for me, it's normally yoga, but it might not be. It might be, you need to get out of the house. You need to get some sunshine. You need to go for a walk. Okay, and then I move on. Next one is intellect. That's different than mind. Because your mind is we all have a preconceived idea what your mind is, but we are all so smart. Your own innate wisdom is incredible. So the next one is intellect. Same thing. How's my intellect today? Wow. Woo, scattered. Little nervous about my interview with Hope today. Okay, well, what do you need? Well, Stephanie, 5 minutes before you get on that call, get quiet. Tell yourself some positive things about yourself. Tell yourself that you're valuable or you're enough or, okay, all right, got that one. Next one, BIE. That's your emotional self. This is a big one that most people miss. So you check in and you say, how are you emotional self? Now, some people might call this their little inner child, or think about that cute little kid that was 7 or 8 outside playing. What is that? What is your emotional self? How's that today? Well, this morning it was like, wow, I feel really loved. I mean, there's a lot of days it wasn't that. I was either, afraid or scared or lonely. And you just say, you know what? I see you. I hear you. But what do you need? And today I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to go for a ride on my bike. That sounds good. All right. So now I've got body, intellect, emotional self. And the last one, SS, is your spiritual self. And that is your best self. So think about like the people you admire. Like I admire Oprah. I admire Elizabeth Gilbert. And I look at them and I think, wow, Oprah's just amazing. Well, no, the people that you admire really have aspects of yourself, your best self. So once you start to look at your own internal spirit and you see how magnificent, I mean, there is no other you on the planet. That just blows my mind. Whatever your own little unique you is, your spiritual self, you say, all right, you check in with that spiritual self. And I go, wow, thank you, spiritual self. I see you today. You're here. You're with me. So that grounds me into that beauty, that light, that spirit. But then I say, thank you. Thank you for being there for me. You're always there with me. What do you need today? And spiritual self says, all I need for you to do is believe that I'm here for you. Spiritual self is always there. And people say, I call it my intuition. I call it my whole self. I call it love. I call it light. Whatever that is, you don't have to do anything. That's already there. So the first 3 things you say, what do you need from me today? And then spiritual self, you really just acknowledge and thank that best part of yourself who's always with you. So if you do that every day, just even try it for a week, I can guarantee you, you will hear things because every day your spiritual self has a message for you. So before you quit the exercise, just say, what do you need me to know today? And that's usually what I write down. It could be something as simple as, you are beautiful as is. But what I do know is after doing this, all of those messages were positive. They were uplifting. None of them had shame or blame because I had asked my body, intellect, and emotional self what they needed. So those have been heard. And then my spiritual self gives me some kind of message. So try that.
I love that. And one thing I love about that is I think the messaging that we end up telling ourselves is what we're searching for in other people to tell us. It's like we're grabbing for someone to say that we look beautiful today. We're grabbing for our spouse to say that they love us just as we are. But we have to first say that to ourselves before someone can really say that to us and for us to receive it. And I love that. I love those steps that you can go through. And yeah, it would only take a couple of minutes. And do you suggest that saying it out loud? Because I think thinking it in your head versus voicing it, if you can, has a very different.
I like it. Well, and same thing. I tried something that somebody had told me to say it in a mirror. And at first that was really hard for me. So I did that for years. I would get up in the morning and while I brushed my teeth, I'd look in the mirror and I'd say, I love you. That was so weird at first. But you know what? Then after a while, I started to believe it. At the time, I didn't even believe that. And when I first went into treatment, that was one of the first things that they said, we're really going to teach you about self-love. And I was like, I love myself. I don't know what you're talking about. But to really radically shift from an outward perspective to an inward appreciation took work. And It's the most gratifying process. And you're right, it doesn't take long. I went pretty slow on that idea, that daily check-in, just so that people could write it down or
Yeah,
try
no,
it.
and I appreciate that.
But it should take no more than 5 minutes. And what I've also found, like yoga, on a day when you go to yoga, I've never met anybody who doesn't leave a yoga class going, wow, I'm so glad I went. I feel great. Now I've found if I don't do that little daily check-in, I don't feel as good. So it's a really quick tool for me to go, all right, I'm here. I'm ready for the day. And other people will take that 5 minutes and meditate. But as a very high energy person, I found I had really hard time with that. I have all my energy when I first wake up in the morning. So at the end of a yoga practice in Savasana, I could access that easily. But I had to go through the physical to get to the quiet.
Sure.
So it's just another tool in case, like people like me that wake up with a lot of energy and ready for the day. It was almost like I woke up, but I was scattered and ungrounded. So some people in Ayurveda say it's either Vata or Pitta, or other people just say ants in their pants, or, hyper, or whatever you call it. I've rephrased it to just super high energy. It's a nice way to get grounded in your body and get ready for the day.
I love that. So I'm curious, what is one thing, I mean, you gave us the step-by-steps that you do every day. I think that really sets you up for feeling happy and fulfilled. But is there anything else that you do as far as a self-care regimen, or anything that you do or say to yourself during the day to stay happy and inspired? And obviously not every day we're going to feel like $1,000,000, but
Sure.
is there something or some things that you do, you're doing yoga and whatnot, to kind of keep you on that path?
That's a great question. A lot of times I'll just stop, and if I have to, I physically put my hand on my heart. And what that does is just reminds me to stop and take a breath. I've found through a lot of different reasons and problems or whatever, and people with trauma have also expressed this, is that I stop breathing. So obviously I was drawn to yoga because it forced me to connect with my breath and to stay present. So there's different variations of this too, or different levels, or different on the spectrum of disconnection. So some people even call all the way to disassociate, which is what I would do. I would simply check out of my experience. So a lot of times it's just the physical act of placing my hand on my heart reminds me of a million different things. You're loved, you're safe, you're all right. But more than that, you're in the moment. When I'm in the moment, there's joy. Because that way I'm not future tripping about, meeting that expectation, or, haven't done everything I was supposed to do today. And I put my hand on my heart, I'm like, wow, take a second. Life is good. I have my health, I have my family, I have a great dog. You also go to gratitude, and I think for me, it's the physical act of putting my hand on my heart that takes me to gratitude. So
that being in your body, that being present in the moment, it's kind of like you're talking about the idea of, I always think whenever I'm getting in that depressed mode or feeling anxious, it's because I'm not in the moment. I'm 20 steps ahead, or reenacting the 5 steps behind me going, gosh, I shouldn't have did that. But when we actually are in the moment, I think that's why yoga is so great. I'm a recovering addict. I know you are. And I think that's so great for us and anybody, because it forces you to be exactly where you are, and then to take that in your life.
Right. And I've said to so many of my friends that everybody could use a 12-step program. Everybody could go to some place like Sierra Tucson where I went, or I also did an experience called the Hoffman process, which was absolutely incredible. And I highly recommend that for people that are faced with a challenge. I did it after my father died. But what's unbelievable is, if one tool quits working, and like I did, I picked up the other tool of drinking. I mean, there's no set pattern as to how you're going to move through these, because life challenges are going to still keep coming. But one of the things that I did like that I learned in the program was HALT, which is if you're hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. Check out those things. And pretty quick, you'll figure out. Now, granted, sometimes I'm hungry. I'm hungry and angry.
I know that feeling.
Okay,
My
stop and
husband's
have
like, get
something to
food,
eat.
get food.
Get food, exactly. But even the lonely or tired, the lonely part is hard for me because it's hard for me to pick up the phone and call somebody and say, hey, give a minute that we could talk. I need help. That one's a rough one for me. But tired, that's another thing. I used to just push and drop.
Mm-hmm.
So even just allowing myself to rest instead of quit, because
I like that. I
resting,
like that.
yeah, resting is totally different than quitting. I mean, obviously, even though I work from home, people think, oh, no, I still work. I can work 8 or 10 hours a day easily. Easily. In fact, that's one of my challenges that I face all the time is I haven't done enough. I haven't produced something today because I was raised, you got to have a job every day. Got to get up, produce.
Check those boxes. Yeah.
Check those boxes. Man, I love those boxes and those lists, but those are torture. It's kind of like that perfection thing. I gave that one up. That's a rough one. That is an unattainable something. It's a form of self-abuse. And as an abused survivor, I've discovered that the more that I can not be afraid of those things, like saying that I'm an alcoholic, or saying that I'm a PTSD survivor, or saying that I'm grieving over the loss of my daughters. I mean, that's still a piece of my life that is unfinished, that I have hope and I just believe in my heart that there's a time and place for everything when everybody's ready to move forward and heal and grow. But there's something in the universe that's keeping me from being connected to them right now, and I have to trust that. I just have to trust that it's something so much greater than I can even comprehend. So a lot of times my friends would say, you know what, if you can't hold that, just give it over to God. And if you don't use the term God, or if you don't have that type of spiritual dogma or whatever, connotation it holds for you, I believe in like a higher power that's even just a light or an energy in the universe that's loving. My religion that I was taught as a child, I didn't get the loving piece. I got the scary and the judgment and
I think a lot of people can relate to that.
Well, I had to learn how to say, wow, I can make up my own definition. And as a Buddhist, I've been a Buddhist for a very, very long time, but there's still aspects of Buddhism that I don't agree with. That's all right. I still believe there's something grander than us, and I call it light. And so if there's a day that I'm afraid to feel bad or feel sad, I simply say, you know what? I can't hold this burden by myself today. And I give it to the universe to hold for the day. It's not like you're saying, oh, I'm never going to deal with this. That's different. This is saying this is too big for me to hold. Can you hold this for me today? And that
Giving
works for me
yourself
on certain days.
to separate and let go, and you don't have to carry all that yourself. I think we as people, especially Americans, it's like,
Yeah.
I can do everything.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be that way. And
Right.
having a support system. And I guess my question for you is, I mean, you've shared so much and this is so awesome. What does it mean to you to live your best life now in 2019, where you are today, everything you've been through? What does it mean to you to
That's
live
a
your
great
best life?
question. It means to feel free to be me, to say what I need to say. I mean, the freedom for me now is still in my mind. Like I was free before. Talk about being an American. That's so ingrained in our being, in our who we are, the right to pursue happiness. But now I really feel like I've given myself that, but I've given it to myself. And that's so much more empowered and gives me a sense of joy and vitality that is just oozes out of me with such an energy, because now I feel free to just be simply who I am and to love me the way that I am.
And I think when you are that place, you attract the stuff that you desire. Like if you want a big house, or you want to drive a nice car, or you want your kids to go to private school, when you are that authentic self, then you attract all that other stuff. And I love that when you were describing that, I'm thinking in my head that the idea of the best life had nothing to do with materials. You were
No.
talking about the inner state, and as a
Right.
result, you attract those things.
Absolutely. And all that stuff is great. Don't get me wrong. I mean, stuff is fun but it's not when you're ultimately on that day when you're thinking, wow, I have no quality of life. I have nothing. Doesn't matter what kind of car you have. Doesn't matter what kind of, I've so adamant that money does not bring you happiness. A life full of potential and vibrancy and purpose. Like the easiest way to get out of your own way is to go help somebody else. There's a million opportunities to do that. But what I found out is just taking the time to design a life that I feel good in gave me the ability to have so much energy to go out and help other people design that life for themselves. And to live without fear, to say what you think, to live in a way that feels good for you, it almost felt like coming out as a whole new person and not being afraid of the judgment or the criticism or the naysayers. That's so irrelevant to me now. And that feels really, really good because I'm doing it for me so that then I can then go out and do for others. So I put myself first so that I can then go out and help other people.
I love it. And when you do it authentically, it's not boastful. And I always try to remember when I do that, how people receive that is not for me to judge or decide. That we all have our own stuff. And that was really helpful for me on my journey, was to remember I can't control people's actions and reactions. I can only control myself. And if I'm coming from a place of love and from a place of healing and hope and help, that will always in the end do exactly what it's supposed to do for others.
Exactly. And the cool thing that I think you tapped on that's so interesting too is I used to believe I had to be the life of the party. And I even put that down. I mean, I used to, because we would go out and entertain clients and I always had to be on. And that really became, like I used to say, I could win my Best Academy Award performance by entertaining people and whatever and being the life of the party. And you know what? Nobody cared once I didn't have that in my head. It was so great. The energy was gone. I could enjoy myself because what I found out later is people thought I had it all together when I really didn't. So nobody ever asked me, how are you? I found out that I had actually distanced people from me because they thought I had it all. And of course, nobody has it all. But if you put up that social mask that you don't need help, you don't need anybody, it's almost a coldness that you distance. Once you finally let your guard down and show people who you really are, you're going to be blown away at how many people really want to be with you and really like and enjoy being with you because you're more authentic.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, I think now my flaws are my superpower.
Agreed.
My sobriety is for sure my superpower because I am more grounded and present and I don't have to numb with alcohol to feel like I'm having a good time. I can go out to a party and nobody cares if I drink or not. Nobody cares if I am not the life of the party.
They want to be around you.
Yeah.
And that leads me to one of my last questions is there a quote or an affirmation or a thought or belief system that you say to yourself on a daily basis that you would want to share with other people?
I think it's pretty simple. I think if you're kind, if you go to yoga, if you think of others and yourself, life's pretty good. I think kindness goes a long, long way. And really just thinking about other people and yourself. So
I love it. How can people find you? How can people connect with you?
Thanks so much for that. In fact, I just launched a new website. It's stephaniespence.com. So come see me there. And then it has all my social buttons and a way to email me and whatever. But stephaniespence.com. Come see me.
Awesome. Stephanie, so many. I'm gonna go back and listen to this interview. The one I did before that, I was like, oh my gosh, so much good information. But you're such a reminder to people that we're all going through something, and that it's about just taking one step and one foot in front of the other. I love the little breakdown that you gave in the morning. That's going to be a new part of my routine. And I just so appreciate your time, your energy, and your effort in being a part of this summit. I want to thank everybody for tuning in today to Harvesting Hope. And I think Stephanie said it beautifully, that no matter how hard it gets, you should never lose hope, and that there is opportunity for you in life to share yourself and be the best version of yourself.
And thank you, Hope. I have to take a moment and just say thank you for being a part of my life transformation. I am forever in your debt for helping me put together a new life, and I love you for it. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. And thank everybody for tuning in. And I look forward to seeing you again on the next interview. Bye now.
Bye.